What's up guys, it's Ben in Parts here. Welcome back to yet another episode of this Cryptid cast series where we break down cryptids, their sightings, their possibilities, what they could or couldn't be and if they could be real or not. And today we have the Mbilintu, or Mbilintu. I'm just going to call it the Mbilintu because it's easier. It's one of those cryptids that seems like it's a living dinosaur in the Congo, but then there's so much doubt about it that you question, is it really though? As usual, if you like this video, please drop a like, drop a subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and without further ado, let's get into the controversial story surrounding this creature. The Mbilintu, or Kapopo, is a cryptid reported from Zambia, specifically from the Lake Bangweulu region, which also juts into the Belgian Congo. It's often described as a regional version of the Mbilintu, and it's often mixed up with the Chipekwe, which is also mixed up with the Mbilintu, which is also mixed up with the Mbilintu. Look, it's just complicated, okay? There's all different kinds of alleged dinosaurs all overlapping here. What's important, however, is that this is the first example of an African neo-dinosaur to be reported in Europe, which will also come back to haunt this entire story later on. The first stories about supposedly living dinosaurs in the Zambia-Rhodesia area were reported in 1909 by the German zoo owner Karl Hagenbeck, whose stories were in turn based on information collected by his associates, Joseph Menges, Karl Schomburg, and an unnamed English gentleman. Menges had actually told these stories to Hagenbeck a lot before 1909, but they only came out in that year. He claimed that Schomburg and the Englishman, while in Zambia, both heard stories of a swamp monster they hyperbolically called half elephant, half dragon, without specifying anything else. Hagenbeck actually mounted an expedition to search for it, but a combination of diseases, hostile terrain, and even more hostile locals soon scuppered the plan. However, the stories didn't end there, because around 1913, the writer Victor Forbin also introduced Hagenbeck to a French animal collector, who claimed to have observed animals similar to an elephant, a rhinoceros, and a hippo in the Tanganyika region. Hagenbeck offered the French gentleman a lot of money if he would return to Africa to capture the animal, but the pair fell out, ironically, because the Frenchman felt like Hagenbeck was trying to pry too much information out of him. Maybe he thought Hagenbeck wasn't trustworthy, maybe he thought he would take him for a ride and then run, but either way, the two, unfortunately for cryptozoology, fell out and were never in touch again. However, Hagenbeck's publishing of this information caused others in Rhodesia to investigate this supposed animal, and in December 1909, a journalist from the Bulawayo Chronicle claimed two Africans independently confirmed to him they had seen what he described as a dinosaur, and that both men had identified it as a sauropod, a long-necked herbivore, with a crucial difference: it had flippers as opposed to legs. And what's more, they pointed out two very specific locations where one could go if one wanted to find this creature. They said it had a body like a hippo, the neck like a snake, and a head like a crocodile. The famed cryptozoologist Bernard Heuvelmans, however, I can't imagine why, views this story as a hoax. But was it a hoax, though? In 1911, colonial administrator Cullen Goldsberry described a sauropod-like animal that he said existed in lakes in Rhodesia. This animal, which he called the Kapopo, actually corroborated a lot of these details. It supposedly had a body as large as 7 oxes, a long python-like neck, and a horn on its head. Captain William Hitchens then chimed in, claiming the Bangweulu region had a long-necked monster living in it called the Mbilintu, which is often said to be the same thing as the Chipekwe, which also has a horn. Hitchens said it was an enormous giraffe-like lizard with a long neck, elephant-like legs, and a head like a snake. Furthermore, one Alan Brignall reported seeing a Mbilintu in this region in May of 1954, and subsequently told his story to the famed cryptozoologist Dr. Carl Schucker. Brignall claimed he had been fishing on Lake Bangweulu's shore when what appeared to be a giant, unfamiliar snake rose out of the deep. Brignall describes it as a creature with a long vertical neck, with a small swivelling head with a brow on it, a visible jawline and a blunt snout. It was all grey, with smooth skin, and a small hump was visible just beneath its neck. When Brignall moved, the animal, which was apparently hypersensitive to sight and sound, immediately submerged and was never seen again. So what could this Mbilintu be? Well, it sounds a lot like the Chipekwe, which is a supposedly rhino or sauropod-like creature that has a horn on its nose, and the Chipekwe in turn also sounds like Mbilintu, and Mbilintu in turn is also mixed up with the Mbilintu, and some natives even mix up the Mbilintu with the Mbilintu. So we're all describing here the same creature, but what could it be? Could it be real or could it be a hoax? To be honest, there's not nearly enough information here for me to claim that this is a real creature, because there's only one real sighting, and the stories of this part rhino, part crocodile, part snake thing sound so outlandish that some of them are almost certainly a hoax. But at the same time, stranger things have happened, and I don't think these natives meant it had a head exactly like a crocodile, a neck exactly like a snake, and a body exactly like a hippo. I think they meant it had a large body, because a hippo's body is large, a long slender neck, because snakes have long slender bodies, and as regards a neck like a crocodile, I think they meant that it was a lizard-like creature, which is why it had a crocodile-like head. It didn't have a head exactly like a crocodile's, but maybe it was scaly, maybe it was a little bit humped, maybe it had horny ridges on its head. Maybe that's where the description came from. Overall, I think it's the same thing as the Mbilintu, and the Mbilintu is the same thing as the Mbilintu, and the Mbilintu could be the same thing as the Mbilintu, and the Mbilintu could be the same thing as the Nguma, and the Nguma could be the same thing as the Mbembu, and the Mbembu could be the same thing as... Look, there's a lot of different African cryptids all lurking around the Lake Bangweolo region, and to be honest, as explained before in one of my previous videos, I don't think the Mbilintu is a real physical creature. I think it's a water spirit. I think it's a spirit, aka a genie, aka a jinn. What different cultures around the world, call different names, but is the same thing. I think it's a spirit as opposed to a physical flesh and blood entity, and I think it can take different forms and can be undetected by people and lives parallel to us, but out of sight of the human eye. I don't think the Mbilintu is a real creature, and if the Mbilintu isn't a real creature, then the Mbilintu isn't really either. It's probably a mixture of rumour, hyperbole and hoaxes. But what do you guys think? Do any of you know anyone who's seen one? Can any of you confirm you've seen one? Do you know any folklore if you live in the area? Please post those in the comment section below. I always get some really fascinating comments that sometimes start off a fascinating information exchange. And without further ado, look forward to the next episode.